Hey, welcome to the Proview Network studios here in Albuquerque and another edition of Local Focus. I'm your host, Sebastian Noel. I know there's going to be a lot of Gladiator fans watching today because our guest that I'll introduce in a moment is an assistant coach for the defending champion Duke City Gladiators. But, you know, usually I have a strict no coach policy here on Local Focus because to me, coaches all say the same thing and it's boring, right? So I've stuck to interviewing athletes. But this story is very unique. What if I told you today's guest, his dream is to become the head football coach at his alma mater, which is Laguna Acoma, and that is the case. And what if I told you I can almost guarantee he's going to make it, because from what I hear, this is a pretty hard-working guy. My guest is Anthony Sando of the Duke City Gladiators and of Laguna Acoma. Thanks for coming in.
Exactly.
So tell me, early childhood, when did you start football? When did the bug bite you? When did you start loving football?
I say I was 7.
Okay.
And I always had older cousins who were playing. Always, so there was always someone to watch or look up to. And actually getting on the field, I was about 7 or 8. I think they lied about my age to get me in with, just to get me in. So since I was, 7.
Okay,
7.
and then you go to Laguna Acoma, and tell us about your football career at Laguna Acoma.
Laguna Acoma, it being a small school, there's not I wouldn't say the competition is low, but it's not like it's no Albuquerque school.
Right. Yeah, it's known for its basketball, right? It's had some great basketball teams.
Yeah. So I didn't get my start till as a sophomore. I was a center of all things. I was a center.
Wait
if
a
you can
minute.
believe
Hold
that.
on.
If you can
Time
believe
out.
that.
Time out. I look like I could be a center. You don't look like a center. How did they put you in center?
Leverage.
Leverage. Okay. All right. All right.
I don't know. It's just it's a sport that you can't. There's no other sport that you could really do as much as you do in football. You can legally put your hands on someone and you're fine. That's kind of your job.
And so, how successful were you at your time there at Laguna Acoma as an individual and as a team?
As a like I said, having not that much competition in the school itself, I took center as a sophomore and played out 3 years, getting chances at linebacker. I think we took 2 district championships, but every time it came to playoffs, we were always knocked out in the first round.
Okay.
Always knocked out in the first round.
Usually by Albuquerque schools, or
there were other Division 2, 3A schools like Capitan or Texaco or Bloomfield. So like there were powerhouses when I was in high school.
Right.
Lordsburg. There's a couple other down south, but it's a different nature when it comes to football on the reservation to football here in like Albuquerque or Red Rancho, with the metro city around the cities.
We'll talk about those differences. What are they?
Like when it comes to like the diversity of the players themselves, because there's a lot of families. A lot of them are tied into like where their parents went,
right?
Where or where they could afford. And when it comes to schools on the reservation, the majority of them are either federally funded or they're funded through the tribe itself.
Right.
So the diversity of it's usually just a tribe itself or the surrounding communities. Laguna Acoma, it has 2 different tribes. The Laguna, the Acoma, and then they have a couple other I would say Spanish communities like Cabero and Bibo and Cebolleta, and there's a couple other little towns around there. But the diversity is just it's not as much as you come into Albuquerque. They're like in Albuquerque, you have families from everywhere. They're not just Hispanic, they're not just Native American, they're not just black, they're not just Caucasian, they're mixed. And just within that, like the genetic diversity is what the huge difference is. Because I know whenever we go down south, it'd be a different game compared to playing games up north. So like those just I guess the transparency is what it comes down to, and not all. I would say not everyone is prepared for that that transition.
Right. Now, what's the difference in opportunity really when you're landlocked, I guess you'll say, on the reservation, right, and at a team like Laguna Acoma, versus a kid maybe that's in a metro area at the same level. Let's throw Manal out there to compare apples to apples, right? Small school, small school. Obviously, Manal's still in a big city, right? So what are the differences in opportunity there? And what I mean by that is, how many hours are kids on the reservation putting into football versus how many hours are kids in the city? How much private instruction is available to kids in the city outside in forces like that?
I like that. That's a good question. With that, I would have to say the availability of the parents, because behind every great athlete is, you know, even greater parents.
Right.
You know, to push your child into committing themselves not only academically but athletically.
Right.
You know, whether it's watching film, going to camp, or even just going outside running drills. And the difference between that is, in Albuquerque, there's so much more opportunity. There being different like outlets.
Right.
You know, whether it be like I don't know, like your local what do they call it?
Yaffle and things like that.
Like Yaffle and like their what are they called? The YMCA's, right?
Right. Yeah.
The different gyms, like the availability out on the reservation, you don't have all that. It's kind of just like everything's rule. So whatever it'd have to fall on the child themselves or the parent themselves to gather, you know, the team in order to work.
Right.
Whereas here, there's already a program set up that all parents have to do is either just drop off their kids or sign them up.
And you know, you could say that to the American child that's not living on the reservation, you know, football is a very culturally relevant thing, right? If you live in the city, there's a good chance that, you know, your friends or your parents or somebody spends their Sunday watching football, right? How prevalent is that on the reservation?
It goes back. I mean, you know, as I said, I watched my cousins play,
right,
who in turn watched their cousins and their fathers, their uncles.
So there is then.
Yeah.
It's already there then.
Yeah, but that just it depends on the community itself. Laguna Acoma has had a team since I think like '68.
Right.
Like they've had a football team. Our landlord, he used to be the head football coach at Laguna Acoma. So I was always in his ear, like whenever I get dropped off. You know, like he'd babysit me for a while.
Right.
Because, like I said, it's the availability of the parents, and in a single parent living, not always do you have guidance.
Right.
You know, so the difference between growing up in the city and growing up on the reservation is that in the reservation you have a little more of a community there. They're being you know, older siblings, older cousins. Like you always get, you know, tagged along to take on someone, you know, one of your younger brothers or younger cousins to follow you around. But with that, you get exposed to how much work you need to put in to perfect your craft. Whereas in here in Albuquerque, it's kind of, they already have like coaches ready, you know, rather than it being older siblings or older cousins.
Well, you kind of bridged it to what we'll talk about after the timeout. We're going to take our first break, and then we'll kind of talk about when you decided you wanted to start coaching and your start down that avenue. We'll be right back.
What is glamour? Frailty. What is desire? Diamonds. They say a life lived without passion is hardly worth living.
Ma'am? Ma'am? Ma'am?
Dang, this one made me feel all special.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
Hey, I'm back with Anthony Sando. Now, you kind of segued perfectly into the coaching part. We were talking about playing, and you segued into coaching and the availability of coaches. So I have to backtrack a little bit. When did you decide you wanted to coach? Is that something you knew when you were playing already, or was it after you concluded at Laguna Acoma? When did that start?
It had to have been after I had finished at Laguna Acoma. The coaching aspect I really pursued, say, about 3 years after I had graduated.
Okay.
But I could never walk away from it. You know, even though it's just watching, not watching TV, but just watching the games at home.
Right.
Like going to the local games, the high school games. Like it's a feeling you can't replace. And coming from a ex-player, it's just like the love for it. And at that same time, growing up, I didn't always have my father around.
Right.
So I always had my older cousins, and my coaches are the ones who guided me, are the ones who taught me. And knowing that not everyone on the reservation has both parents, there are some children out there that need that.
Right.
They need that positive figure.
So, were you having trouble breaking into coaching on the reservation? Is it easier or harder to break into something like that on the reservation?
No, not necessarily harder. It's just I think the challenge is finding coaches who will commit themselves to a full season.
And how did you decide that you wanted to go all in and commit yourself?
I just couldn't get off the field. It was just a natural love for it.
So tell us about when you first met Coach Bramante, the head coach of the Duke City Gladiators.
When I first met Coach Bramante, a lot of things went through my mind. There was nervousness. There was, I'm not gonna say envy, but wow, he actually did it.
Right.
This is how he makes his living. I guess I was in awe.
And where was that, so our audience knows?
It was at I go to Southwestern Indian Polytechnical Institute, and at the campus there were he was a special guest for my public speaking class.
Right.
And when I saw in our syllabus that he was a head coach, it really intrigued me. I went in 10 minutes early, and I was the last to leave. Just picking at his brain.
Right. First of all, how rare was it for you to see that a fellow Native American was the head coach?
Oh, that was,
because that is rare,
yeah,
right?
It is rare. You don't see him get too far.
Why are there not more Native American head coaches or coaches, do you think?
That's a very good question. I'd have to say it'd come down to the community from which they come.
Right.
Some communities really push their youth to live outside the reservation and learn the world around them, whereas some of them, they want to keep their people within their own tribe.
Right.
But it doesn't give them that exposure to the world around us. Another thing I'd have to say is just everyday challenges that all communities faces, whether it be alcoholism or drugs or even just crime itself, because not always do communities have the outlet to really grow their people.
Right.
And in some instances they backtrack. Once they get into the system, they never get out of the system.
Right. Well, and don't you find that coaching is kind of a good old boy fraternity, right? So when one coach retires, they're going to try to push for one of their buddies or someone that's worked for them. So it's a never-ending cycle. If you don't have a Coach Bramante in there to promote and nurture and develop you, how does the cycle ever end, right? Whereas now, if you get your chance, there's a better than high chance that you'll bring in other Native Americans, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's the way the cycle has to go, right? So, all right, you're at SIPI, he's finished his speech, class is over, and obviously you stay after to have a word with Coach. What did you tell him?
I just kept picking on his brain, like how he got to where he was at, where he started, where he went to school, and how he fell into the role of head coach of Duke City Gladiators. He I believe he got hired on with the New Mexico Stars years before, and he talked about wanting to start their own organization, separate from the Stars, and just the story of how he was able to pull everything together. Because like it's a lot more than just X's and O's to run a football team.
So how does picking his brain go to being part of the Gladiators? Tell us about that.
All I asked is if he needed help,
Right.
and he gave me the call.
From what the way Coach tells it is you kept at it and at it and at it, where he finally just had to give you a chance, right?
Yeah, because the class had ended in the spring, and I caught him through the summer, the fall, and finally in the winter is when he gave me a call back.
Okay.
So I was just checking in, like, say, about every 2 months.
And what was that conversation like?
Just seeing how he was doing, if there was anything I can prepare, any way I can prepare. And, like, just what he needed is what all it was, like, because I was willing to work.
And then he offered you an opportunity, right?
Yes, sir.
And what were the terms of that opportunity?
Don't be late, and
Don't
you have
just
to
come
buy
in. Don't be late.
You have to buy in.
Okay.
It's not just like not just being late, but you have to be fully sold on it.
Right.
To where. Like,
So it started as an internship, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's kind of what I was leaning at.
Okay.
So
okay.
tell us, first team meeting with Coach Bramante. So first of all, tell our audience that doesn't know that's pretty early in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take us to it. First meeting, you walk into that. Was it at the Starbucks back then already?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
at Starbucks.
The Starbucks there on 12th, and take it first team meeting. What were you expecting going in, and what was different once you were there?
So I would have to say what I expected was actually getting to meet the players or actually being on a field somewhere,
Right.
Or drawing things up. But what it really came down to was personnel. Knowing your personnel, knowing who you have on your roster, who you need, and what else you need. What more you want or what more you require from your roster. It was just a lot of film, a lot of X's and O's, just to see the strengths and weaknesses of each player and how we could use them or how we could put them into our system.
When you start to see how many hours go into being a part of a coaching staff here, is there ever a thought like, holy crap, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah, it had hit me. Like I said, I was shocked.
Like, this is for real. This is not just dipping your toes in coaching. You're all in, right?
Yeah,
at this point?
exactly.
Take us to the first practice. What was that like?
Oh, I'm gonna say 5:45 in the morning. Like sun's not even up,
Okay.
and everyone's still waking up themselves. But just the energy that coach brought when practice started, because there's a difference between before practice and practice itself.
Right.
It was a whole nother monster from what I've ever experienced.
Can you describe his intensity at practice?
You have to be on your 9. You have to be on point with everything. And that's from a coach's perspective. From a player's perspective, like they were held on, they're held accountable for all their actions too.
All right. Well, we're going to take another break. We're running short on time here, so we'll go to a commercial break. We'll talk about your very first game, and then we'll want to talk about your family and how incredibly proud your family is of you. We'll be right back.
What is glamour? Frailty. What is desire? Diamonds. They say a life lived without passion is hardly worth living.
Ma'am? Ma'am? Ma'am?
Dang, this one made me feel all special.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales. The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
Your first game as a member of the coaching staff. Tell us about it.
So first half, I believe we were up by like 2 scores. This is down in Amarillo, and it's the first time I got to experience the full Bramante experience.
Boy, is that something. I co-host a podcast with Coach, and the full Bramante is something to with experience. So tell us about that.
So my role, I was up in the box and just documenting everything, their offense, our defense, their defense, our offense, just going back and forth.
Right.
And I come down, and I remember seeing one of our cornerbacks was in the hallway, and he was getting taped up, and just trying to give, not advice, but I guess coach him up.
Right.
And coach was had been waiting for me because I had all the information of their offense.
Right.
And he chewed me. I was like, I came out, and he yells at me. He's like, it's your first gig, and you're ready. What's the word?
Well, you probably can't
socializing.
Can't say the word.
Yeah. He came after me like this is at halftime, and I already had everything he had needed, but it's just that moment of I guess speaking when I'm not supposed to. I guess you'd say. Right. But he's very intense. But he's a great communicator, and all it is just listening to what he wants, how he wants it.
What Coach told me about that game was, and when he talks about this, the glow in his face of how proud he is of what you've accomplished, but he talks about your family going to that road game.
Yeah.
And, it's one thing for family members to come and watch their players, but for a family to come and watch you coach in the box, right? So you're up in the box.
I'm not even on the field.
And your family has got their eyes up on the box. But your family's so incredibly proud of what you've accomplished. Mm-hmm. Tell us why and talk about that. I mean, what was their feedback once you said, hey, I'm going to be traveling with the team, I'm going to be working with the team? What did they say?
I think what it came down to is just the love of the game. I mean, it being an internship, you're not getting paid, and to give yourself that much to that extent, it's important. There's no doubt that the importance of it, or like how high a regard it is.
Right.
And to subtract everything out to do specifically football, only football.
Right.
Like they saw the importance of it, and they know where I want to go with it eventually. You know, I'll give my mom a shout out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love you, Mom. Good job. Thank you
Now,
for everything.
let me ask you this. One of the things that they did at this game, or that they were proud of at this game, they're using you as a positive role model for your brother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a tough thing to talk about, but share that with our audience if you can.
So like, when it comes to how do I put it? When it comes to my older brother, you know, when it comes to like families, it's always the eldest who's held and responsible for everybody else.
Right.
And I guess like he took it the wrong way to where we were always the reason to blame.
Right.
But all it is it's resilience. I mean, if you mess up in life, all it is being accountable and how you can come back from that. You know.
So for our audience, he made some bad choices.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And we'll leave it at that. But your family is using you as a guiding example to your brother of, hey, if you work hard, you set your mind to something, look at what Anthony's doing, right? How special is that to you?
Oh, it's phenomenal. You know, before Coach Bramante, I was just a middle school coach, high school coach. You know, I was still learning in my own, but with this opportunity, I've learned so much more than I could have without him.
How has that changed your relationship with not only your brother, but your family?
They realize how committed I am. Anytime I do get with them, you know, it's blessed. We spend as much time as we can together. I have younger nephews who, you know, I've always taken out. You know, I guess that's where I got the coaching from when I started coaching, because they always watch me play. So in turn, they wanted to play themselves. So just little things, showing them little things, and eventually it'd work its way up to where, you know, I'm at where I'm at. I guess that's where I got my start.
Right. And so what's next this year with the Gladiators?
Right now, I believe I'm a candidate for a special teams coordinator. I know I have to defend that. You know, I have to really be on point with everything when it comes down to our statistics, our calls, our formations, our opponents, and ourselves. You know, that's all going to come down when camp comes.
Right.
So,
did you ever think in your I mean, you're pretty much in leadership school right now when you're with Coach Bramante, right?
Mm-hmm.
And something exciting that the Gladiators have shared on the Duke City Gladiators Facebook page is that the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, John Harbaugh, and his legendary father, Jack, will be in town for the opening game, ring night, and they'll have a clinic and stuff. Did you ever think you'd be learning from John Harbaugh when this journey started with the Gladiators?
No, not at all. I was honestly, the year before I went to a coaching clinic, a Glaciers coaching clinic up in West Manchester. I forgot what it's up in Denver, and I was excited to meet college coaches, let alone, you know, John and Jack. Like that's phenomenal. Like New Mexico, why would they come to New Mexico?
Right. So who's the athletic director at Laguna Acoma?
Right now, I believe it is. I think it's Simmons.
Right. So
I need to get back to you on that.
If he's watching, if the AD at Laguna Acoma is watching, this young man, I want hired. Okay? You can send the press release right here to Local Focus, and we'll announce it on Proview. Good luck, my friend.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week, everybody.